Hey guys, welcome back to Upside Down Data. In this video, I'm going to be giving you the bull case for Polkadot. And let me tell you, it's a case that pretty much writes itself. So if you guys like the content, subscribe and like the video, and follow us on Twitter at Upside Down Data. We put out regular updates there about our UDPI risk indicators and more. So what I want to do in this video is give you both a technical perspective on price action and a fundamental perspective on upcoming catalysts that constitute the bull case for DOT. And there's a lot of it. So let's start here. This is the price history of Polkadot on a logarithmic scale, color-coded by risk. If you've seen any of our videos before, you're probably pretty familiar with charts that look like this. And this is one way of looking at risk information. The reason that I'm pulling this up is because it helps to contrast where we are now with where we were the last time we talked about DOT very much. Last time we made a video about it on the channel, which was almost a month ago. We were up here in this region, this orange and then this red region in early to mid-November. And the reason that risk had gotten so high there was because price had run up in a very impulsive manner after the announcement that the Polkadot parachain auctions were set to begin. So that was a catalyst that began to, catalyze new demand for Polkadot. And that materialized. There was a lot of buying pressure, ran up the price a little bit too quickly, and then people locked up their DOT. Other people who were trading the short-term move took their profits, and now the price has retraced, obviously helped along its way by what Bitcoin decided to do over the weekend and the entire market pulling back very quickly. So now we're looking at a much different situation for DOT. Now we're seeing DOT sitting in this green territory. It's nice to see some green every now and then, because that tells you that things have really cooled down and that risk is much lower. We're sitting at about this -2 region. Another thing that's interesting when you look at this chart is that you see that these daily closes are gapping a little bit. This last move to the downside was so impulsive that we're seeing that on the chart. Now this does happen. It doesn't necessarily indicate a trend reversal. You can see at various points in history there are these gapping types of this gapping action. So we could go down farther, but this is just one data point that we're taking into account. We're not going to be deterministic. We don't know what's going to happen, but risk has come down quite a lot on DOT, and that's pretty noteworthy in and of itself. We went from a +3 all the way down to a -2 in just a month. That's a pretty substantial move in risk. Definitely something to take note of, and it's coinciding with some interesting looking price action, which is very impulsive to the downside. So this is one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to. The other way that we like to look at this is by pulling up just this output of the UDPI. This is the upside downside potential indicator. This is the same risk information that we were just looking at on that previous color-coded chart. We're just looking at it, in white as an oscillating line. When the line oscillates up to the top of the graph, that means super high risk. We're looking at this vertical axis being 5 at the top, meaning max risk, to -5 at the bottom being minimum risk. So, we got in July all the way down to this -5 area. So we bounced up, and DOT's most recent move has obviously been to the downside, and it has just hit this -2 region, which means that it flips green, so it's really easy to see on the chart. It also means that we've entered this new region, which could be a trigger for a dollar cost averaging approach, either to begin dollar cost averaging potentially, or to increase one's entries given that the risk has declined. So that's something to take note of. What we don't see on this chart, which is important also, though, is we don't see that the risk has reversed. So, it's hitting this -2 right on the nose. And it would be interesting if we saw that it bounced from here and then started to move back toward the upside, obviously, along with the price. For the risk to start increasing again in this situation, we would need to see price make a significant move back to the upside, because as we've discussed in other recent videos, because of this recent impulsive move to the downside, even if we just go sideways for a while, that's going to bring risk down pretty fast. So risk will continue to drop if there's sideways action, or if there's obviously a further move to the downside. But if the price moves back to the upside, which is a possibility, it's been doing that a little bit over the last day or two, and we'll see whether it continues or whether this is a dead cat bounce. But so we don't see that yet on the chart. And that's obviously something that we like to watch. Risk is low, but we also, for kind of confidence that we're nearing a bottom or that we've reached a bottom, we'd like to see a little bit of evidence for that on the chart. That's not there yet. And so we have a few data points here. And some of them are pointing toward a really strong bull case, which is the risk is low, and it's going to be continuing to decrease. And also we saw that little bit of gapping action on the chart, which really just means that this move to the downside recently was so impulsive that it's just kind of out of the ordinary. So we don't see this reversal yet. We do see a different kind of reversal though. So, so far what we've looked at is this, the price history color coded by risk. And now we're looking at this same risk information as an oscillator. But let's just look at the price action. And let's also look at the RSI alongside the price action. This is a different kind of risk information that we can use in confluence with the UDPI. So here's the daily Polkadot chart. I'm pulling up the daily here to emphasize a couple things. One is that we've had our first green day, or we're having our first green day. And we haven't closed it yet, but it looks like there's a decent chance that DOT is going to close its first green day in about a week. After these long wicks to the downside, these super volatile few last days, we're getting a little bit of movement back up to the upside. But what's really interesting, I think, if you look at this chart, is that if you take a gander down here at the RSI, this is the daily RSI chart, you can see this dip down below 0.3. That dip, which took place over the weekend, depending on your time zone, on Friday night, maybe on Saturday, is the lowest daily RSI reading in the history of the asset. Polkadot has never reached below 0.3 on the RSI. So, or 30, I should say, not a 0.3. I'm still in the UDPI mindset when it comes to these scales. The price has never been so impulsive to the downside that the RSI has made that move into the sub 30 region. Never before. And we just saw that happen. Now, that you could definitely see as a potential indicator of a reversal. It means that the price is oversold, or was oversold, and has now bounced a little bit back into the 30s. But that goes along with bullish divergences on multiple time frames, actually. But you can see it pretty clearly if you just look at how we made a lower low here on the RSI compared to any of these, and certainly compared to these lows back here in September. Yet the price did not manage to do that. So we basically bottomed out here in this range that we tested as support in September, then in early September, then again in late September, a couple of times before bouncing off of it. And then we came back down at the beginning of December, tested this region as support. The RSI took a much deeper dive this time, but it couldn't take the price with it. So it kind of exhausted itself. That's what that means. It means that the momentum tried, and it just couldn't drag the price down any farther as hard as it tried. So that is a bullish indicator for a reversal. And I think that's another data point that we can take into account on the technical side of things. Now, the fundamental side of things is pretty straightforward. I mentioned the parachain auctions. Parachain auctions are coming to a close in about a week and a half, and we're going to get this parachain rollout. And you can find out more about this information on the website, but the short of it is that in the middle of December and over the following couple of weeks in steps as they roll out the necessary technologies and the necessary systems to support this, the parachains are going to be going live. And there's going to be a lot of use for the first time of the Polkadot network. And if that's not a fundamental bullish catalyst, I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, after this just being a hypothetical project that's been sitting in the top 10 by market cap, despite being basically a hypothetical project, not the only example of that, but it is still noteworthy that it's sitting there alongside things like, Binance Smart Chain, the BNB token, and other tokens that are driving platforms with use. So Polkadot's about to get on that bandwagon. And from a technological standpoint, it's a powerhouse. So this is the beginning in some ways for Polkadot. We've been hearing about Polkadot for well over a year if you've been in the space, but in a way it hasn't even really begun. So we're looking at a low risk point on the chart. We're looking at an upcoming major fundamental catalyst. We're looking at an RSI that hasn't been so overbought ever before in its history on the daily chart. Draw your own conclusions. So that's the bullish case for DOT. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe, and remember, with the UDPI, WAGMI.